Hello and welcome to today's podcast. My name is Ibukun Itimi and I am the host of the Come Check With Us podcast where we talk about all things engineering leadership and career development in tech. Since the podcast launched, we've talked about recognizing your value as a leader, setting your team's vision, personal goal setting, navigating career transitions, promotions, and many burning leadership topics that I've really wanted to be able to talk about for the longest time. But we haven't talked about one of the most important aspects of leadership, which is the people. So today, I'm walking you through my personal principles for managing people, the things I've learned, things I continue to practice, and mindset shifts that have helped me grow. Hi, I'm Ibukun Itimi, and welcome to the Come Tech With Us podcast. If you're new here, hello, and if you're a returning subscriber, then thank you for coming back once again. I'm an engineering leader and career coach, and pretty much someone who's been navigating the ups and downs of building a tech career for the past decade. And I'm pretty much here to share all of that with you so that you don't have to do it alone. Today's episode is a special one because it is the season finale. It's episode 10 or 11 if you count the intro. And it's taken a lot to show up and to be able to produce, 11 episodes of this podcast. And so I just wanted to pause and reflect on how far we've come. When I launched this podcast, I just, really wanted to experiment. I'd been doing short form content on Instagram. I even tried TikTok, LinkedIn, and other platforms. But I wanted to be able to sit down and sort of slowly work my way through topics to share and reflect on the things that I've been learning. I didn't just want to, do TikTok dances or chase trends because that's something that I'm not really good at. But I just wanted to build something lasting. And I think that I've, sort of like hit the mark with the podcast in, what I wanted to do. It's been an interesting journey. I started off just driving to my friend's house to use the podcast studio in her building. So shout out to Fumi for, always making sure that it was booked for me to use. It was a 20-minute drive, but I, wanted to be able to have something at home just so that I could record on the fly, without having to do too much preparation. And so halfway through, I'm like, okay, I'm going to build a podcast studio at home. It's not the, most perfect thing, but I'm just happy that I was able to throw things together and pretty much end up with something that helps me just like wake up in the morning, sit down, record, or record late at night. And I really want to thank everyone who has supported me so far, for everyone who has commented, for everyone who has shared, for everyone who believed in what this vision was and contributed to it, my team, my family, and everyone out there who has just followed me on the internet and decided to buy into what I'm, talking about. I'm really, really, really grateful because it, makes all the hard work that has been put into recording and producing this podcast worth it. So that's, pretty much my reflection as we go through the last episode of this season. Now, to get into today's episode, I, really wanted to talk about what is the heart of, why I do this work, which is people. I, want to share what I wish more engineering leaders knew about managing people, because at the end of it, that is the main reason why our roles exist, not just in service of like the business and the goals that we are pursuing day to day, but really to be able to support other people to deliver on their own goals, deliver on the business's goals, build teams that work. At the heart of every team is, every individual that is contributing their time, their energy to, making things work. And so even though we've talked about goals, we've talked about promotions, we've talked about all these things that, you often would hear about in the corporate world, because again, it's all about like movement, it's all about like achievements and growth. The underlying sort of like theme is that like there are people who are at the heart of this these things, making things work, showing up every day, giving you their time, giving you their best efforts. And so being able to support them successfully as a leader is one of the most primary and like one of the most critical things that you can do for yourself and for your team. So we'll get into the different principles today. So the very first principle is that people are the reason why we lead. No leader leads, succeeds in isolation. Your impact is only as strong as your ability to connect with your team, grow with your team, and advocate for your team. It starts with building trust, and it takes time and intentionality. Now, there's this sort of like weird phase that I find when you first take on a team as a leader. It's like you take on a team, you're there to sort of like support them in a way, guide them through what to do. You're learning the work and you're learning the people. And there's this period where it feels like you're pretty much working with strangers because they don't know you, you don't know them, and you're just really trying to get to know them. It's a very tough position for me to be in. I'm going to be very like frank because I'm so used to sort of like getting into building, trust with my team and helping them feel like, okay, they can trust me. They can, talk to me about the challenges that they have, whether that's career wise or personal wise. And so that phase for me is something that I'm always looking to sort of like close, the gap really quickly. Even though I know that it takes time, I always want to be very intentional about how I'm going about it so that, that time is not extended. Because if there's no trust, like you're just going to have people who are showing up to work, not necessarily thinking that you're there for them. And that is not a situation that I want any leader to be in for a long period of time. So I always tell leaders, like, you have to, see your team as people first. They're not just like this engineer or this designer, but they're full human. You want to be able to build connections that allows you to show empathy, to give better feedback and support them through challenges. You're there for them, not just as someone who guides them through the work, but also guides them through how they build their careers, how they succeed in the workplace. And that affects how people often show up outside of work. So how do you build that trust? The first thing you need to do is to make time and be present in your one-on-ones. Don't multitask. If you can't be fully engaged, reschedule. And I know that this is sometimes like a hard thing to do, to be actively listening to someone, especially when, there are conversations that you don't always want to have. They're conversations that could be difficult, but being able to sort of like show up there and acknowledge the fact like this is the person that's sharing their personal, thoughts with you, that's sharing their own personal journey with you is very, very important. Practicing active listening is just pretty much hearing what they say, reflecting it back to them, asking questions. You don't have to go at a one-on-one feeling like, oh, I have to have all the answers, but it's being there to show that, okay, I'm gonna, take on what you're saying. I'm gonna take on your feedback. I'm gonna share feedback with you as well, so that you have this time that is productive, not just for yourself, but also for the team member. And if you're feeling like you can't fully show up, then it is okay to reschedule. This is something that I also try to do from time to time, especially when I feel like emotionally I can't be in the headspace to support another person. So maybe I've had a very stressful day. Maybe I'm going through something personally that means that I can't really be as attentive as I usually would be. I'm okay with rescheduling and making sure that like that time is booked in the calendar. I don't just like, oh, okay, I'm going to cancel this and, whenever I'm feeling like it. No, I tell the person that, oh, okay, like I don't feel too well. I'm going to reschedule this for next week or for, tomorrow, and then show up at a time when I can fully engage. The reason why is because, like, if people don't feel like you are listening to them or you're hearing them, then they feel like it's a waste of time. Like, imagine going into a conversation and you're talking at this person and this person is pretty much not like engaging you in the way that you want. You're not going to want to be in that conversation. And a one-on-one is no different. People are coming to you to share sometimes like personal challenges that they're going through, and to be able to sort of like listen and connect with them is so important. The next thing that I would advise is to use structure. For the longest time, I used to just, encourage my team to come prepared to one-on-ones, and I would say, oh, this is your time, come to ask me any questions, come to discuss whatever you're doing or whatever is top of mind for you, and we'll see how sort of like the conversation goes. I usually go with like a prepared agenda, something to check in on, with them, either something that they've done during the week or something that's happening during the in the company generally. But I find that like most people just come at one-on-ones feeling like I don't really have anything to talk about. Cue using an agenda. So recently I started experimenting with using an agenda that has exactly the same prompts every single time. How are you doing? How was your week? Rate your week, 1 to 10. Um, what's something that you've accomplished in the last couple of weeks that you'd like me to give you feedback on? What's your top priority for the next couple of weeks? Is there any other topic that you'd like to discuss? And I find that because we have at least three things that they can't go without answering, like you tell me, how your week is. And I love to sort of use that as seeing, what works for them, what excites them. So when somebody who is usually an 8 comes and says they're a 5, I know that there's a red flag for me to, listen to and understand what's happening there. It could be work related, it could be the work that they're doing, it could be, just in their personal life. But because we already have a baseline after doing it a few times, it's easier for me to say, okay, I think that there's something going on here. Or somebody who is usually like a 6 or 7 comes and tells me that they're a 10, then I know that it's a really good week and I can dig into what has actually, happened this week that makes it so different for you. So I love to just like have these conversations and checking with them, using that's just like one prompt. It's a very simple prompt, but it really helps you understand your team more. The second prompt, is like, what is your top priority for the next couple of weeks? So again, I know, there's this controversy about like not really discussing like work during one-on-ones, but it helps me sort of like give them feedback on, okay, this is what I'm doing. These are blockers that I have that I might need you to help me with, or this is the problem that I'm facing, or maybe the next couple of weeks are not going to be very exciting because, I have to do this, sort of like migration, and that's not really what I want to be doing. So being able to sort of like think through their priorities, I think, my team has found very useful. And the one that I love is like, what have you done in the last couple of weeks that you would like feedback on? One thing that I really wanted to do this year is be very deliberate about giving continuous feedback. It's easy to miss out on that like continuity of feedback when you're not like really intentional about it, because if you're just coming to one-on-ones, doing quick check-ins, you might not really delve into, oh, like this person did this thing last week that I need to commend, or this person, did this thing a couple weeks ago that I, need to like ask them about and sort of like go into with them. So I love that that prompt is there. And I, encourage my team to say, like, even if you don't want my feedback, let me know what the past couple week has been. And as we talk through it, I find that it's a really good place to just like ask questions, see how they're feeling about their work. And it prompts me as well to remember, oh, I remember this piece of feedback that somebody maybe mentioned to me in passing, or, there's this thing that I noticed that you did that I would love to give you feedback on. And so I've been able to sort of like week to week or like every couple weeks give my team like continuous feedback so that we don't end up in a space where you're giving feedback at the end of the quarter, you're giving feedback when they can't really address it in real time. So I really love these prompts because you've done something in the past couple of weeks. There's going to be something to talk about. You're going to do something in the next couple of weeks. So we have something to talk about, and you have an idea of how your week has gone. So there's something to talk about there. So I think using that structure has really helped just like have people also know what to expect when they come to one-on-ones, prepare for one-on-ones ahead of time, which is something that I struggled with getting my teams to do in the past, but I've really been loving using an agenda. So if that's something that, you think could work for your team, or give them a list of prompts, to ask you questions, to encourage them to think about what they can bring to the one-on-one, then feel free to do so. I actually have a one-on-one template. I'll probably just like, put it in the show notes as well, so that, you can have something to share with your team, when you're, preparing for one-on-ones. And then finally, I, just want to talk about listening actively again. I think being able to sort of like reflect what people are saying back to them, ask them questions, see yourself there as like somebody who is just, opening up the conversation for them and being able to sort of like reflect what they're saying, reflect what they're thinking back to them, and, just be there as a sounding board. Over time, like this becomes natural. Like you learn how to sort of like process what people are saying very quickly and like reflect it back to them, confirm that you're hearing the right thing, so that they feel like, okay, this person is actually here to listen to me. Now, building that trust again is very, very key to help you with delivering on the next principle, which is aligning on goals and expectations. You can't support someone's growth if you don't know what they're working towards. You might think that, you understand the general like motivation for careers, but some people want promotion, some people just want new skills, some people are looking for impact, some people are looking for more money. So being able to sort of like have those clear conversations with your team to set the expectations and also understand what they want is very key. It's very important to leverage your company's career ladder, review it together, understand how they see themselves, and then check in regularly to see what is working, what is not working, what are the gaps, what are the opportunities that we should be providing to you. I love to really, really look at the career ladder because I think it's just such an underrated tool, even though it's such a key thing in like whatever career or whatever performance management process you're going to go through. Performance reviews are based on the career ladder. Promotions are based on the career ladder. So instead of having conversations outside of that, why not tie that into your conversation with your team? Sit with them, look through each attribute. If it's technical, like how are you meeting the expectations for your level? What are the gaps that you have? Do we have the right projects for you? What are the things that you want to be working towards? That just makes the conversation a lot more objective, a lot easier, because performance, is very relative, right? Especially how people see their performance and how you see their own performance. There's often a gap in somebody saying that, oh, you know what, I think I'm meeting these expectations, and you might be interpreting it from a different perspective. So instead of allowing that gap to, lie fallow, bridging it by having the conversation, going through the career ladder together, setting the expectations, understanding what is the important thing for them to do. You will find that some people might say, you know what, I don't want to work towards a promotion. I just want to have like greenfield projects, or I really want to be able to work towards a promotion within the next year. And as a manager, having that conversation helps you validate whether that, could work or not, or even encourage them if they're not seeing, the possibilities that you see in them. And so having the conversation about what their goals are, aligning on your expectations is so important. It's not just about just like giving them feedback, it's also giving them a place to like reflect. I love to have, my team assess themselves and come to me with their own assessments. And then I can give, feedback on that, because I want them to be able to understand, how does Ibukun think about performance? How does Ibukun see my performance? Am I aligned with what Ibukun, sees that I'm doing? Or is there something that's off that we need to address? So having them go through that process also helps them with like how they set better goals, how they think about career growth and, progression. Like I did an exercise recently where I said, this is the pathway, for your level. Go through that pathway. Tell me the things that you're doing confidently. Tell me the things that you think you're building towards, or tell me where you think that there are gaps. So they did the assignment and then I did mine. And then we sort of just like compared notes to say, oh, where I think somebody is doing well, they might think, oh, I think that there's this gap. Or where they think they're doing well, I might say, oh, there's this gap. And I love that having that conversation helps them very clearly see this is how Ibukun is thinking about and interpreting the pathways, and then help them see actually if there is an opportunity there for them to sort of adjust. And same for myself as well, listening to them sort of reflect their work back to me is also an opportunity to shift my own perspective. There might be things that I'm thinking, oh, maybe this person is not quite like missing the mark on this, and they come and they have like several examples. Of course, that's an opportunity for me to also adjust my own, perception of their work. And now we're sort of walking away from that conversation with like, these are my strengths. These are the opportunities, or these are the gaps that I have, and these are the opportunities that we have to close those gaps. So having your team also sort of like be engaged in the exercise, and then being there as a sounding board, being there to reflect, being there to give them feedback is also very key. And in this space I would say, using like coaching techniques to also understand, why they see, things that way. So instead of saying, oh no, I don't think that you're doing well in that way, try to understand, try to ask questions to say, okay, why do you think that this is, something that is a strength for you? Or why do you think that this is something that is a weakness for you? Or how are you interpreting the work that you did here in relation to this attribute that we're talking about? It gives them the space to also reflect really on the ratings that they're giving themselves, and to just really be able to also have them kind of come to that middle ground that you're hoping to have. And the reason why I love to do that is because people have more conviction when they come to a conclusion themselves. And so it's not just you sort of like feeding your own opinion to them, but sort of like working together to help them come to certain realizations, and also to help align. And at the end of the day, doing this, say every half of the year, at the end of the year, at the beginning of the year, it just removes the likelihood that there will be surprises by the end of the cycle, because they know exactly what to do and how to be working towards their goals. Now, the next thing that I'm going to talk about is to advocate for your team. One of your biggest roles as a manager is to be your team's advocate. It means that like you're going to be in rooms, whether that is just like random conversations with your colleagues or other leads in the organization, in rooms where decisions are being made, in promotion calibrations, performance reviews, and you need to be able to speak up for your team's wins. You need to be able to speak up for individuals to make sure that they're considered for the right opportunities. Your role role as a manager is to kind of like take the context of the organization and be able to translate that to what your team needs. So it's very important to like build relationships so that you know what is going on across the organization. You know what opportunities are available, whether that's building relationships with your managers, with your peers, with cross-functional leads, sort of just being present so that you can take that context back to your team. And advocacy is about like representation. It's making sure that people understand the context, the efforts, and the impact behind your team's work. Now, this is a really key one, especially when you're working in an organization or you're working with a team that is very domain knowledge heavy. You want to be able to like represent that, this is what my team is doing. These are the reasons why we're doing it. This is the impact that we're looking to have, because you also want your team to have that sense of we're working on the right things. Our manager is out there sort of like representing the work that we're doing correctly. So being able to sort of like speak up for them, being able to advocate for them is very, very key. And even down to the individuals of on your team, being able to sort of say, oh, I think this person would be really good for this opportunity that's being discussed. Or, if you're thinking about, looking for a new leader, there's this person on my team who I think would be a really good fit. How do we sort of help them succeed in that way? Or even representing your team's goals to, say, your manager. So you have someone on your team who wants to work towards being a people manager, or you have someone on your team who wants to work towards being like a more technical like lead, like a staff engineer. Being able to say that, okay, there's this problem space that we're trying to navigate. Maybe this person should be the right person to sort of like take that on and figure it out so that we can sort of start building their case towards staff or start building their case towards being a manager. Being able to advocate for your team, again, like all of these principles build on top of each other, right? So we talked about trust, and then we talked about um aligning with your goals. And once you're aligned with your team's goals, you need to be able to go out there and then advocate for the right opportunities so that they can actually achieve those goals. Now, the next thing I'm going to talk about is adapting to what your team needs. And this for me was a very like interesting lesson to learn. There's no one right way, to lead. The right way is just like figuring out what does your team need, what does the person who you're talking to need, and showing up for them in that way. There's some people who like need autonomy. They know what to do, they run with it, and they're good. There are other people who need more support. They need maybe clearer direction, tighter feedback loops, or even maybe they need like a performance plan. Your job is to adapt even when it's uncomfortable, is to have difficult conversations. It's not just about, oh, this is how I show up as a leader. It's about meeting your team's needs. And trust me, I've had moments where I've hated, having to initiate tough conversations, but I have to remind myself that like, even in those tough conversations that are not, that don't come easy to me, this is support. Like, this is literally the job that we're there to do. Like, you're there to support your team, whether that is someone who is strong in their role or someone who is struggling. You're there to have conversations that are not as straightforward. You're there to tell somebody that even though you think you're doing really well, like these are the gaps that I'm seeing. Or you're there to tell somebody that you're not, quite meeting expectations, and how can we continue to support you? One thing that I don't love as a manager and as a person is just being very micromanaging. But there are people who need more like, one-on-one. There are people who you need to check on. Imagine saying this person needs a performance plan, but because I'm not a micromanager, I'm not going to give them that close support that they need. That is not doing the role that you're hired for. That is not in service to that person. Actually being able to sort of like check in with them a bit more often, be more on top of the work that they're doing, is the work that we need to do at that point as a manager. And it doesn't mean that like everybody needs that, but it's understanding what works for each person. And as long as they're able to successfully deliver their work, you can continue to sort of like support them in that way. Again, it's going to be, a difficult, thing to adapt and change yourself, because you see, the values that you hold, that, oh, I'm the type of manager that gives my team autonomy, that gives them space to work on what they, what they want. As long as we're achieving our goals, we're fine. But then you come across somebody who is not quite missing the mark, who is not quite, delivering on the stuff that they're supposed to. How do you deal with that, in that case? You probably have to like change your style. You probably have to do things that you normally wouldn't do for other people. You probably have to sit with them in, meetings. You probably have to like have like weekly check-ins. There's so many things that you would have to do that don't come naturally to you. But again, it's part of the role of being a leader. Just being able to sort of say, I'm showing up as this person, not because like that is my default style of management, but because I know that this is what this person needs to succeed. And so I'm going to have to do that. I'm going to have the difficult conversation. I'm going to have to quote unquote like micromanage them for a while until I feel like they can um stand on their own 2 feet and be, successful, be as successful as other people on the team. So yeah, I think it's often like a difficult, decision to come to, especially when you're first starting out in your career and you're feeling like, oh, I had this boss who was such a nightmare and I don't want to be like them. It could be like you're going against every single grade in, in your body. But at the end of the day, it's about showing up with, for your team with what they need and how they need it. Now, the next principle that I'm going to talk about is to make space and let people fly. My favorite part of leadership is watching people step into their potential. I just love when I know that I'm able to support you through what I can see that you're able to do. You find people who they have so much potential and so much capacity, but maybe not as much confidence. But your job there is to sort of like support them so that they can slowly build up that confidence and continue to show up in a way that even they are surprised at what they're, able to achieve. Like looking for, space for ownership for them, like for ideas, for their growth, whether it's like, oh, I'm going to give you this small task that you can lead end to end, or you know what, I think you're ready for a much bigger, task, whether it's pairing them with the right support, giving them feedback, providing context. It's almost like parenting in a way, in a very weird way. You want to sort of like give them freedom, but then, sort of support them through that process where it's like, I'm going to, give you some guidance. I'm going to see how you do and then continue to see, okay, how can I give you the feedback that you need? How can I give you the support that you need? I really love to have this approach, regardless of whatever level, my engineers are at. It's really about how can you make it work for their level. So a staff engineer might take on like a much larger project, a much larger domain or challenge, whereas like maybe a more junior engineer, you want to give them something that's within, their own like capacity to achieve, setting, stretch goals for them so that they can also see, that one, you believe in them, and two, that they can actually stretch and grow in ways that they didn't think. I'm a sucker for just like thinking about what is the impact that I'm here to make as a leader. And at the end of the day, the business goals, are great, but knowing that you have that impact on people's lives, knowing that you've created the space for them to fly, oof. In fact, that takes the cake for me. I think that is one of my favorite parts about being a leader. And so giving my team that space to feel like a part of, something, feel like a part of the vision, feel like they can contribute, they can lead things, they can own things is such an incredible feeling, not just for myself as a leader, but also see them reflect that. Like I just love like being able to like give feedback and then somebody coming back and saying, oh, Ibukun, thank you so much for the feedback that you gave me. This is how I've been thinking about it. I understand now, like I'm able to sort of see how to do things differently or how to approach things differently. Honestly, I'm it just like melts my heart to be able to do that for people, especially because when you really think about careers, it is such a huge part of people's lives. Like it is something that is so difficult to separate from how you show up in your day-to-day work or in your day-to-day life, whether that is within the organization or outside of the organization. Your confidence, a lot of things are tied to people's careers, and I don't necessarily think that that has to be the case all the time, but it's the reality. And so being able to sort of like support them in a way that they feel like they're growing, especially in tech where we deal with so many challenging things. Imagine, somebody just like killing it at work, knowing that they work in a very difficult domain, very difficult career. There's no how they can take that confidence back to their lives, back to their families, back to how they show up in other things. And so really giving your team the space to thrive, the space to really do the things that they love, you're essentially pouring back into another person's life. You're pouring back into building up, how they show up everywhere else. And so really think about what do I need to do to create the space for my team to build up their confidence in their delivery, especially when you have amazing people working with you. There's no reason why you shouldn't be giving them, good feedback. No reason why you shouldn't be rewarding their achievements, acknowledging them, giving them the space to do more as you see their capacity grow, giving them, the feedback that really helps them recognize that, oh, you know what, you're doing really well. Like take a moment and pause and really think about the things that have gone, that have gone well. And for some of us as leaders, it can be difficult because sometimes it's difficult for you to do that for yourself. But you have to realize that it goes beyond you now. Like it goes beyond, again, we've talked about this. It's not just about the code that you're writing anymore. It's about, the people, it's about the team, it's about the goals, it's about what you're able to sort of multiply, or how you're able to multiply your impact from just going from, being the one to writing code to helping other people leverage their skills to deliver on the goals that you have or the vision that you have as a team. So there's a lot of opportunity as a leader to make that amazing impact. So think about what each person on your team needs, meet them where they are. Think about all the things that we've talked about throughout the episode, like building trust, aligning with them on their goals, advocating for them, and use that as an opportunity to sort of again adapt your management style so that you can actually give them those opportunities to flourish as people. Now, the final one that I'm going to talk about is leading with a coaching mindset. And this is one skill that I think every manager should have, which is just figuring out, how do I show up as a coach for my team? The reason why I say that is because you are not going to have all the answers. You're not going to have the most, technical experience in the team, but you're there to sort of guide your team. You're there to ask powerful questions and help people come to their own conclusions. If you listen to the last episode, I, had Tokumbo on, and we talked about how she went from feeling like she wasn't ready, for leadership, to really being able to get really positive performance reviews, really being able to show up as a leader. And a lot of what went into that was coaching, was asking her to reflect on her experiences, was having her come to that conclusion of, wait, there's so many ways in which I've done this thing before that I think I'm ready to show up as a leader. And I could have told her because I can see those things in her, but the powerful thing was having her sort of like come to that realization, because when somebody comes to a conclusion themselves, they can sort of stick to that and feel like, okay, this was from me, this is my own thing, this is my own conclusion. Whereas if I tell them something, it feels like, oh, maybe Ibukun doesn't understand this or that. But it's very different when that comes from your own conviction. And so coaching is such an underrated skill, I think, to be able to sit down, reflect with your team, ask them questions. Don't feel like you have to give them all the answers, because that's such a huge pressure. Like, imagine leading a team of 10 plus people and being able to answer every single question. It's almost impossible. But what you can do is ask them tough questions that help them reflect. How do you think we could have done this differently? What do you think worked about the situation that you want to take forward with you in other projects? Or, you know, how do you think you want to sort of like address this thing, now that you have all of this information? Or what is your own reflection on, what we've talked about so far, all the feedback that I've given? Being able to sort of like ask questions and sit back and wait. It takes a while for even other people to sort of like get into that space of like, okay, I'm sort of being coached and I'm there to answer questions. But after you continue to do that with your team, they get into that rhythm of, this is really a time, like when I'm in a meeting with my manager, this is a time for me to pause and reflect on how things are going. This is a time for me to see what went well, what I can do better. And they come prepared for that conversation because you're showing up that way every time. And for yourself as well, it is also a time for you to learn about your team. Like, when you're the one always giving answers, you might not even be able to sort of unlock that creativity or unlock that part of them that really knows how to engage. And it's very important for you to be able to sort of like give them that space, as I said in the previous thing, to just like reflect. It's give them that space to feel like, okay, I'm confident enough to come up with answers, I'm confident enough to come up with solutions to my problem. And you see that even sometimes, like, they would start sort of like reflecting that back to you as well, coming prepared, because they've gotten into that mindset of, if I go to Ibukun with this question, she's probably going to ask me a question back. So how can I think about, what to do before, going into that conversation? So I think that is, that brings me to the end of all the principles that we talked about. Again, just going through, all the leadership principles we've gone through in the episode. We talked about building trust, which is the foundation of everything that, you get to do with your team, and really sort of creating that space where they can open up to you and really have you support them, because you know and you understand them, and they also understand that you're there for them as a leader, you're there for them as a supporter. The next thing that you build on top of, after building trust, is aligning with them on your goals and expectations, understanding their motivations, and being able to like support them and give them the feedback that they need to grow. Next is advocating for your team. So now you understand their goals, you take those goals and you represent them in the best light possible. You take the work that they're doing, represent the impact, and make sure that they're getting the right opportunities. After that, you need to figure out how to adapt. adapting as a leader is such a critical skill. Sort of being able to say, okay, this is what my team needs and this is how I'm going to show up. Or, even though this is something that doesn't come naturally to me, I know that this is providing support for my team and I'm willing to do that. And then the next principle that we talked about was, giving them the space to fly, giving them the space to flourish as people, giving them the opportunities that stretch them, that challenge them, that build that confidence so that you're getting a team that's growing every day, that knows that you're there to sort of like be dedicated to their growth and be dedicated to who they are as people. And finally, leading with a coaching mindset, not coming to them with as if you have all the answers. No, but coming to them knowing that you're there to sort of like reflect with them. You're there to also challenge them to feel confident in finding answers themselves. So if there's one thing I want you to take away from this episode is that people are the work. As a lead, your work is not just to, you know, get a title. It's not just to build the organizational charts. It's not just to, get the team going on the goals. It is to support your team in a way that you're able to deliver all those other things, effectively. Once you have a team that knows that you're committed to them, that knows that you're supporting them, that knows that every single thing that they're doing, you're thinking about their goals, you're thinking about them as people. You have a team that's engaged. You have a team that's ready to come to work, that's ready to show up and do things that even they wouldn't naturally want to do, but know that they can trust you as a leader, they can trust you as a person. And that is such an important part of leadership. So when you lead with empathy. When you advocate, make sure that you make space for growth and know that you are, creating and impacting people's lives. Make those 80,000 hours of work more meaningful for somebody else, because that is the power that you hold as a leader to be able to shape such a critical part of people's lives. And for me, that is what keeps me coming back to leadership. That is the reason why I share about leadership. I continue to show up as a leader, as a coach. But yeah, thank you so much. This brings us to the end of season one of the Come Tech With Us podcast. It's taking late night recordings, early morning sessions before work, building a studio. But at the heart of it, I'm so excited that, I've showed up, I've done it. And I'm so glad that you have been here with me, that you've been listening, you've been sharing your time with me. And I cannot wait to continue to, record and prepare and come back for season two with even better, to share, even, more of my experience and more of my network to share with you all. Until then, keep showing up for your team, your career, and yourself, and see you next season. Bye.